Hello again and welcome to another Articulate Outburst podcast. If you're wondering why I'm wearing a hat and I'm matching top complications, we're looking for a point of difference with the band. So we've all ordered hats. Our bassist wears a cowboy hat anyway. We were flirting with the idea of what kind of hats we could have, and I kind of thought, well, the bowler hat has so many different connotations to it, from Clockwork Orange right through to Mr. Banks in Mary Poppins. So you kind of really got a kind of blank canvas with which to place my contribution to the bowler hat in. And I thought, well, bowler hat, obviously I've got a bit of a bomb head, so I can't really have, it's difficult with scale, difficult with the style, and obviously difficult to kind of, for a point of difference with a band, and obviously I need a different hat to everybody else. So I've gone with a bowler. I've got two actually, I've got this one and a blue one. Hang on tight to the next stream and you'll be dazzled by my new bowler hat. Anyway, moving on, obviously we've going through our song inspirations, what drives us to write music, what kind of things do we draw our inspiration from. Obviously the power structure, big business, media, global institutions, NGOs, pharma, bit of a dodgy word these days that one, but pharma, and quite a lot of industrial kind of censorship industrial complex, obviously the military industrial complex, and you kind of figure, you know, by obviously politicians and the chicken feed kind of lower ranks of the power order. Institutions, and we've been going through this for quite some time. I found it quite enjoyable, quite cathartic, because the frustrations that you feel in your daily lives when you're reading the news, the alternative media, you see the wheels going round, and when you get to my age you've kind of seen the same old stories regurgitate for a talking point. Every year now when the clocks go forward or the clocks go back, there's at least a week's worth of news as to should we be doing this, sheep farmers in Scotland, and after a while you feel like you've been on the treadmill a while, and it's when you kind of start to see how the media works. A lot of it's clickbait, a lot of it's to engage people, and a lot of it's just to kind of get people reading your story rather than theirs. So there are certain things you kind of see periodically over time that kind of shapes your thinking. Either lazy journalism or just seasonal journalism, I suppose, what a lot of it could be. If something that can be screaming hysteria over, they inevitably will do. So we're kind of deep, really deep into the kind of things that make us tick, the kind of things that we kind of point the finger and our anger at, and obviously sometimes take a view, sometimes we don't take a view, sometimes on the inside looking out, sometimes on the outside looking in. So today, continuing the series of institutions really and power structures, I wanted to take a look at the church. The church, obviously, if you go back 500 years ago, it was all powerful, and then the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, and obviously there are other religions that can be penciled in there, which obviously some are easier to talk about than others when it comes to the honesty box policy. But if we just take the Church of England and the Catholic Church as examples, and you look across Europe, and whichever major city you go to, you've got cathedrals, beautiful architecture. Some of these things took centuries to build. I were in Lincoln not long ago, and the footings for that were put in, I think, in the 1100s. And, you know, it took 300 years to build. I mean, it's interesting that somebody could be working on that their entire lifetime and never ever see the kind of the finished article, if you like. And given that the church was the only one with money, it was probably the biggest employer at the time. So not only did it have some power over the hearts and minds and the kind of belief system of something being greater and bigger than us outside these mortal coils, if you like, it also had quite a lot of dough, so it was the biggest employer of the time. One thing's for sure, in the days of the somebody trying to get hold of me on my other phone, apologies. Terrible ringtone, can't get rid of it. If anyone knows how to change a ringtone on a Samsung J5, then be my guest. So yeah, the church at the time, but it put its money where its mouth is. It really did believe that there was something greater and better than these mortal coils, and obviously the cathedrals reflect that belief system. York Minster, in York actually yesterday, and York Minster, you can't not look at it with awe. And you just think to yourself, this is before, real technologies existed, and, building something of that magnitude to the greater good of the community, for the greater good of the country, you've kind of got to take your hat off and salute it in many ways. So over the years, the church, I think, has found itself from all-powerful, even to the days of Henry VIII, the schism between Henry and the Catholic Church, that resulted, Church of England and the subsequent fallout from that. And obviously the church has got a lot of charities. I suppose it supports and helps people. I always thought it's selling, kind of buying your soul at the same time, but let's face it, it serves a purpose. It's anything that's been going for that long does deserve, to a certain extent, to at least have the certain respect it deserves. And then let's just wanted to talk about how that respect has begun to wane over the last 10 to 20 years. Calvin Robinson, I think, has probably done more for the church than anybody else has in the last 5 years, to my knowledge. Probably shaped my thinking a little bit. I do think that as the country's moved away from the church, I think there's definitely been a visible, how can you put this? A dissolving of what held us all together at one time. You look at today, and we used to have 3 TV channels. Certain programmes were on at certain times. We'd all watch them together. We'd all talk about them at work the next day. So and the churches where your weddings, your funerals, your christenings, etc. So obviously, in a tightly knit country, these were the institutions of the time that actually knitted us together, and I don't really think we're that knit together anymore. Yeah, we do go. I always chuck a tenner in. I always chuck a tenner in the box. I reckon the vicar scratching his head, every leaking roof, every one less of the congregation as time goes on must get him or her very, very worried about whether or not they're going to have a job in 5 or 6 years' time. So I do believe it needs some support. Calvin Robinson, as I said earlier, has probably done more for spiritual thinking than anybody else has. A very adult view of the world, and very, very insightful. And I think the church have kind of turned him over a little bit. I didn't really go into the details of it, but I get the general idea. He's singing a different song to the one that they once sung. So you think, from an all-powerful institution, they've got the buildings, they've got the locations, they had the people. I think I look back at the Archbishops of Canterbury of the past, and you look at them now and you think, they're just shills, really. Literally, if the wind blows in one direction, they'll follow it. They've stopped being themselves and are bending over backwards to fit a modern society really at the cost of what their morals actually are set out to be. And yeah, as time goes on, religion can be interpreted, some religions can be interpreted in different ways, and a little bit more modern thinking never really goes amiss. I think the church in and of itself has fallen congregations. They've got to pay the bills. How they get people back in the pews is what we're seeing now, I think, and this all-line inclusivity. We know that that's contrary to what the belief system is, but they are trying. This acceptance of other religions as well, where they open the gates and welcome in others, I do find a bit strange. I think, given the religious, how can we put it, disagreements would be perhaps the politest word to say. You don't want to trigger any words on this channel regarding any algorithms that might come looking for you. So yeah, given the disagreements that we've had with other religions over the last 1600 years, it does seem a little bit strange that we're now kind of, how can I put it, getting the guitars out and singing Kumbaya with other religious leaders. I get the point that they're all fighting for our souls in the afterlife, but the way in which they're doing it seems to be somewhat diminished. I don't think they're as rigid as they used to be. They're coming happy, clappy vicars these days. And when I do go to weddings, funerals, I do kind of study the form of what's actually said. And you do, I won't say getting comfort from it, but I quite like the idea that it's in some way sanitises. I always say funerals are for the living, not the dead, because it allows you to turn a page on that person's life. The whole will still be there, but the page has been turned. But over the years, the church now has just become some unctuous, to quote a Christopher Hitchens, some unctuous merchant at a bazaar. selling its wares to the highest bidder, and you look at the temple where Jesus kicked out the traders, and you think, well, how now is the church any different to what that was seen back in the day? I think the rainbow flags, the Ukrainian flags adorning just about every site just tells me it's a captured institution. It used to stand for itself, it used to stand for its principles, but now it's been completely taken over by the modern world, to the extent of its principles and its morals. Again, I'm not particularly religious, and perhaps I'm not the best person to ask about spirituality. I think that everybody can be spiritual. I don't think everybody can be religious. But I do think it has its place. I think it is a place for great comfort. I think it does do some good work. I think it spreads its word in the third world, probably on a kind of shill basis. But, you know, at the end of the day, people believe what they believe and they want to spread that word. That's one thing I can't quite understand about how it always wants you to believe what it believes. It seems to struggle by the fact that you don't sing from, you don't see it the way they do. But, you know, ultimately it's a great discussion point in the boozer, spirituality in the church. But now it's just a shadow of its former self. Now I know there's quite a few in the House of Lords, which makes you wonder why. What are they doing there? And what's really its purpose in life? Can it come back? Can it be an institution that we all look up to, that we respect, that we want to contribute towards? I mean, I could never see myself getting up on a Sunday morning and going to a sermon. Would I watch one online? Don't know, might do. I don't know if any of them broadcast online these days. But either way, they've got to do something to get people in. But the methods and the way in which they're appealing to just about every single intersectional group in its own way just seems a little bit like overkill and a desperation. A desperation that it's palpable and you can smell it. But I really just wanted to put that one in there. This is the last of the large institutions that we rail against. I mean, the church has become something we don't actually rail against it. You just look back and think, what's going on? I wrote a song called Cathedral, which is not really about the church, but it's about the imagery of it. So the cathedral is about the power structure, really, and all of its armaments and its wills. Whether it's always been there, whether it's a new thing. So the cathedral I do draw quite a lot of imagery from the church, because I just think it is great imagery and, you know, good kind of, not out of body experiences, but from a spiritual higher point of view, looking back at us, does give a songwriter a certain edge, because you're kind of outside society, looking at it from a microcosm point of view. That's all I'm going to say on this. We're going to move on to other stuff. I don't know if you've been following the news recently, but the knives are out for GB News. I mean, I'm not a great lover of any news programme. I think all news should be balanced and it should different views. So I'm going to really kind of do maybe another spot on the media. Obviously, Russell Brand and Lawrence Fox are on the naughty list, and it's interesting how many people are jumping in on there, kicking them when they're down, should we say. So I think I'm going to do something about that. But email in, let me know what you think of that. I'll put the other one on for the next stream. Again, thanks very much for your comments, thanks for your support. If you could like and subscribe, put the thumbs up sign, it allows me to keep doing this. Doesn't get too disheartening. So I do get quite a lot of interaction, and I do get quite a lot of banter, and I also get quite a lot of abuse, which I quite like as well. Kind of learn from that in many ways. Anybody got any tips, anything that I should be doing, anything I should cover, then I'm more than happy to do it in my normal dogmatic way. But thanks very much for your support. Thanks for watching the video. As I say, like and subscribe. We're playing in Leeds on the 7th of October at the Primrose. Come down, see what all the fuss is about. And we've got another gig on the 11th of November at Holbeck Working Men's Club. That's in aid of charity. That's in aid of Macmillan, a cancer charity. Very, very worthy of our support, very worthy of your pounds if you want to come down and support us. So that's it from the kind of live performance point of view. We're in the studio on the 21st and 22nd of October. I'll give you some snippets. It's coming up to the 50th show on the YouTube streams, so I'm hoping to make that a little bit special. We might get some of the other band members involved. They're all very camera shy, they're all a little bit uncomfortable in front of a camera, but I'll do my best. I'll certainly be recording some of the music. Really excited about this up and coming album. Everybody says that the second album's a bit of a curse, but from our point of view, the second album is, I'd say, where we're maturing musically. We're doing things differently, we're thinking differently. So any comments you've got, any suggestions, thanks very much. It's always a pleasure, and I'll see you in the next stream. Thank you.